Hey there guys, so today's tech blog is going to be on something slightly different than normal. It is going to be on something very important, however, to all of my tech blogs and to everyone who records web videos on Koi, and that is video cameras. Over the weekend, unfortunately while I was hanging out in the park, a thief stole both my wallet and my camera. I got the wallet back, but not the camera, so it's necessitated a trip to the local electronics store to find a replacement, which wound up being a good opportunity to kind of take in all the options for web video cameras right now and see if there was a better option out there than the standard definition flip that I've been using for a couple of years. The requirements there were that it have a decent microphone, decent video, and that it be under $200. The three options that really jumped out in that price range were the Kodak Playshare, the Sony Bloggie, and of course the Flip HD and HD Minor, right? I got to play with each of them in the store, and they all had very important strengths and weaknesses, but in the end there was a clear winner, so I'm going to take you guys through that process and what I thought the good and bad of each one was. So starting off with the Kodak Playshare. Now, this is the camera that Noel actually has been using for his web videos in the past year, and as you've probably seen, the quality of that camera is really good. It takes video at 1080 pixels, which means that it's detailed enough that you can put it on your television at home and you're not really sacrificing any kind of quality. It looks as good as anything you might put on the TV. There was one major drawback, however, and that was the microphone. I don't know what kind of microphone they're using, but it makes audio sound so garbled and like it is under 50 feet of water. Unfortunately, because I do spend so much time talking to the camera and have no plans to stop doing so anytime soon, that made it a deal breaker. Next up was the flip cam. Now, I've used the standard definition flip cam pretty constantly for the past 2 years. I've recorded everything from fire performances to my own tech blogs with it, and I've been really, really happy with the results. That said, the flip does have some very important drawbacks to it. Number one, even the HD flip can only record video at 720 pixels. This means that if you blow it up to the size of your TV screen, it's going to look very pixelated and jagged, which is not so cool. It's less important if you're only going to put video on the web, but it is something to keep in mind. The microphone is better quality than the Kodak. Still not amazing, but it's at least a step up. The reason I went with the standard definition a couple years ago when I last was shopping for a camera is that, as it turned out, the standard definition and the HD camera both use the exact same lens and what looks to be the exact same CCD, that is the electronics component on the board that captures light and turns it into an electrical signal. Why this is important is because I realized very quickly that HD, because it's a wider screen aspect ratio than standard, what they should have done was add some extra electronics to pick up a bigger picture with the HD. In fact, the reverse was true. They actually took electronics out to make the aspect ratio of the HD camera. So therefore, even though the standard definition has fewer pixels in it in its video, it can capture a bigger area, top and bottom, than the HD can. At the time I was recording in my living room, so I really, really needed the extra space because I just couldn't get far enough away from the camera to be able to record everything that I was doing with it. Nowadays it's less big a deal because I'm not recording in my living room as often as I used to. Nonetheless, the quality is not terribly great. The price is not too bad though. Cisco, the parent company that makes the flip cameras, is actually phasing them out, so they're going for pretty cheap right now. The last option on the list was the Sony Bloggie, which actually I was really, really excited to try out. The reason was, in all the online reviews I'd seen, it looked as though A, the microphone was as good if not better than the flip, and B, it had a picture quality that was as good as the Kodak if not better. And sure enough, when I tried it out in the store, the colors were amazing. The video it can take at 1080 pixels, and it has this really cool feature wherein the entire back panel is an LCD screen, so you can actually see the video that you've just taken across the entire backside of the device and see it in all of its detailed glory right away. The bad news is that there's a really conspicuous design flaw that came with this. That design flaw is that since most of the cameras in this class are designed to be taller than they are wide, and the Sony isn't, they actually designed the chassis in a manner as though it was. That is, for both the Kodak and the Flip, the tripod mount is on the short side of the camera, which is fine if it's supposed to be taller than it is wide, but it's also on the short side for the Sony. And the Sony, in order to take widescreen video, has to be on its side, which means that unless you plan to hold the camera at all times, which clearly I can't, you need to have a tripod to be able to mount it sideways. Needless to say, I don't like traveling with a tripod either. In this video, as with pretty much every other video I've posted, what I do is I find the nearest flat object that I can stick the camera on and record that way. Unfortunately, this was kind of a deal breaker because there would be no stable way to put the Sony down and record in widescreen unless I did bring a tripod everywhere with me. So, as disappointing as it was, the Sony wound up being a deal breaker for that reason. And some of you may be guessing by now that the camera I wound up going with was the high-definition Flip. It may not be the best picture. The microphone is only so-so. But in the grand scheme of things, it's cheap, number one. I mean, it's $100 cheaper than either of the other options. But also just, it's familiar. I like what it does it well, and I can see now, having tried out some other cameras in its class, that it actually faces up pretty well to them. So if any of y'all out there have experiences with cameras in this same price range and have additional options for me to try out, please leave me some comments and let me know. Otherwise, it's good to be back sharing with you guys and having that camera in my possession. So thank y'all for watching, thank y'all for listening, and have yourselves a great week. Peace.